False Start, a college football podcast for everyone and everyone else. I'm your host, John Buhler, lead writer, fansided.com. I'm joined today by a man in the moving box who doesn't make no excuses while he's trying to assemble his angry chair. Into the flood again, Cody Williams, content director, fansided.com. Here he comes to snuff the rooster. How are you?
I'm doing. I was not ready for that. I'll tell you that right now. I'm doing good, man. It's good to be back. I'm sorry that we're still not fully unpacked, and like we were talking about, I look like I'm in a prison right now recording. But I promise you, I am in a comfortable new home, so that's nice.
I mean, you didn't say Beetlejuice three times, but it is your decision, and I stay away.
That's- oh my God. I
Uh,
don't think we survived the crash.
I wasn't ready for that. But yeah, we're gonna do some just like Novocaine to finish the show up today with some Alice in Chains. It's the off season. Cody was moving, and I'm like, we've been thinking about Alice in Chains for like 3 months now. I figured this was appropriate.
Absolutely, man. I mean, just one of the classics that I think we both enjoy. So excited for it.
I know. I gotta share this before we get started. So I bought a jar of flies on CD at like the local place, and I've been mentioning to bring this up on the show, and I've been messing it up like every time. They're talking about like why it's jar of flies and then the album cover. So I looked this up. According to Staley, the album comes from a science experiment Jerry Cantrell conducted in third grade. They gave him two jars full of flies. One of the jars was overfed and the other was underfed. The one that was overfed flourished for a while. Then all the flies died from overpopulation. The one that was underfed mostly survived all year. I guess there's a message in there somewhere. Evidently, the experiment had a very impactful situation on Jerry Cantrell.
You know what? Just underfeed your flies and everything's gonna be okay, man. That's wild.
And then the guy who did the album artwork for Jar of Flies, Rocky Schenker, he said, I have fond memories of shooting this album. It was, it was in his dining room apparently, which is really gross. It was just me and it's my assistant and this child whose name I forgot. My assistant made multiple trips up the street to gather hundreds of flies with a butterfly net at some horse stables. The flies kept dying, the kid kept complaining, and my assistant kept having to gather more flies. It was nominated for a Grammy for best recording package. I still have the jars.
Still have the jar. And I think there's a lesson in there as well.
When you're dining inside, you can also dine al fresco. This is supposed to God, that is dumb. But not as dumb as this show, where we've obviously false started here. We're gonna move on to our first and 15 with It Don't Mean Enough. Steve Sarkisian explained why he had no interest in becoming an NFL head coach in 2025. He said this at a press conference ahead of spring practice, something to the tune of like, I worked my tail off to get back to being a head coach. Not all jobs are created the same. Texas is better. I wanted to make sure I got adequate compensation compared to some of these other gigs. I know the two jobs he was up for most notably were the Cowboys and the Jaguars. Cowboys went from within to hire Brian Schottenheimer. The Jaguars got noted job hopper Liam Cohen, so congratulations with that. But you mentioned that this is about something a little bit more important than any of this.
Yeah, it's about Arch Manning, man. We know it is. Like the entire like statement was basically, and like I fully understand if you're Steve Sarkisian why you would say this. Like you have the luxury of choosing what you want to do, but he kept talking about unfinished business at Texas, and there's so much that they have to accomplish, and so much that they've already accomplished. And I'm just like, every quote just rings like has an undertone of Arch Manning throughout the entire thing. Like you don't get Arch Manning to Austin and then leave. Like that's not you can't like regardless of what happens with Arch Manning, to this point, there is not a bigger name in college football. There hasn't been in a very long time than Arch Manning. Everyone is going to be watching what this kid does. And the expectations are high because he was the number one recruit in the country. He's a Manning and everything that goes with that. You can't just bring that to Texas and then walk away from it. You just can't do it.
No, like you won the battle. You beat out Georgia. You beat out Clemson. You beat out Ole Miss. You beat out um, Alabama, I think. Alabama,
Yeah.
Clemson, Georgia, Ole Miss were the other teams that
I,
were in consideration
I,
for it.
wasn't Tennessee in there for a little bit as well?
Tennessee, SMU, I think Duke, Virginia were all
Yeah.
fighting for him as well. But like it really kind of came down
Yeah.
to like Georgia, Alabama, and Texas.
Hmm.
Look, Manning's entering his third year. It's his redshirt sophomore year. He's going to play at Texas next year. He's going to play there in 26 and possibly even 27. Really depends on how it goes. In my honest opinion, I think he needs to probably play 2, maybe 3 years.
Mhm.
More of a runner than a thrower. We got to see him get a little more refined at that. Plays more like his grandfather than his uncles.
Yeah, definitely. Like he's a, shouts to him for being less of a statue than his uncles. That's probably a good thing. And if he can develop the throwing part of the equation, then he's going to be a very good college football player. But I'm 100% with you. And I think that, when you look at Eli, when you look at Peyton, and the Manning family has their fingerprints all over most of what Arch has done to this point, it's hard to think he's not going to stay at least 2 years because for all the hot air that the Manning family expends, they're smart. There's no doubt about that. Like, there's a reason that Archie didn't want Eli to go to the Chargers. Like, you go to New York, you're a legend. Like, he wasn't that good, and he's still like every New York Giants fan loves him, and he wants him in the Hall of Fame, even though he didn't get in on the first ballot. But like, they're smart with how they handle these things. Peyton could have gone after his junior year at Tennessee. He didn't. He stayed. He ended up going to the Colts, and obviously we know Peyton had the career he had. So like, they're smart. They recognize these things, and one of the big trends in the NFL right now is experience matters at quarterback. We've seen guys like Mitch Trubisky, Trey Lance, these guys who are projects without experience but get drafted highly, fail pretty quickly. Anthony Richardson potentially doing the same thing right now. And so you have this blueprint of if you're inexperienced, then you're kind of set up to fail in the NFL. You don't think the Manning family realizes that? He's staying at least 2 years.
100%. I feel like you got to approach 30 starts. Okay, like if you're at Texas, you're going to be playing in at minimum 13 games a year,
Yeah.
maybe as many as 16. So whatever it is, 14, 15, depending on however you go in the playoff run. He's got 2 starts under his belt at this point. It's ULM and Mississippi State. Again, not much, but
Hey, Mississippi State, they play hard. So
they
we'll
they
give them
they,
that.
they do play hard. I will mention something about Mississippi State and JLN later on. Let's leave it at that. But you bring up a great point there. The Mannings, they may suck a lot of the air out of the room, but it's all smart and calculated. Archie Manning's like, yeah, I don't want you to go to the Chargers. They don't know what they're doing. We'd rather you go to the Giants, re-up with Ernie Accorsi, or basically make the Giants good.
Mhm.
Eli or Peyton Manning could have left after his junior year. He would have gone to the Jets instead of Keyshawn Johnson. Jets still don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then you go back to what Archie did coming out of Ole Miss. I mean, his lot in light's different. He was the first guy. He played for his home state's team in Ole Miss. Largely carried a team that wasn't that great. I mean, he basically got run up the Heisman. I think Plunkett at that point,
Yeah.
like because he almost beat Alabama. Well, he goes to the expansion era Saints, and they were terrible.
They were real bad. It wasn't great.
But like, I kind of feel that when it comes to Manning, when it comes to Sarkisian, you're going to basically wait and see what. I don't know if they're going to reunite in the NFL. That's way too much to expect. But like,
Yeah.
better jobs and better opportunities have to open up. Like, I don't know. Like a lot of these jobs that are head coaching available, like these aren't good jobs. Like they're
No.
no, like the best job that could have been available was the Bengals, and for Mike Brown reasons, it's not that good.
No, it's not that good. And then like you also, I wonder if there is a part of the NFL equation beyond, we've talked about the Arch Manning part, and then the NFL equation, like you're talking about. You look at some of the guys who potentially could be taking a step down. Andy Reid's not going to coach forever.
No,
Pete Carroll, probably not the longest for this world, but if he can get the Raiders right, that becomes a way more attractive job. Like, there's guys who are kind of nearing the end of their tenure at jobs that could be way more attractive. And then, like, you go back to the Cowboys, like, I don't think that this hire of Brian Schottenheimer, like, if it doesn't work, I don't think it's going to be a Jason Garrett or Mike McCarthy type situation where they hang on too long because he's not necessarily in that same mold. So like I do think that there's an opportunity for like that job to open back up. So like I think better opportunities are probably coming for Sarkisian as well.
I mean it wouldn't shock me if our teams open up in the next 3 years. I mean,
Yeah.
Falcons don't do well this year. Maybe they're done with Raheem Morris. So dysfunctional. Obviously, yeah. Don't go on Twitter or X. A lot of Falcons fans were having a really rough time this past week. Just those negative people on earth, dude.
I only caught glimpses of it because obviously I was, moving and things of that nature, but it must have been pretty bad because Ian McMillan mentioned the exact same thing to me yesterday on Stacking the Box.
I mean, there are certain members of Falcons Twitter that are just perpetually angry all the time, and it was going. It's like you do realize we don't have a lot of money. This isn't a great free agency class. Like,
Yeah.
just chill out. You haven't been happy since haven't been happy since Vic. Just,
Yeah. That's tough. That's tough.
but I think about it from like this perspective, tie a bow on it with Manning and Sarkisian. You're looking at like it's going to be calculated, and I would venture to guess that like Manning is going to go before Sark eventually does. I don't know what job that would be for him that would be so overly enticing. What if the Steelers opens up? What if the Ravens open up?
Yeah.
You're looking for something of that level where like, we're not talking about dysfunctional teams like, hey, come on down. You want to coach the Bears, man?
Yeah, like, if Kevin Stefanski gets fired from the Browns after this season, which again, I think we both think would probably be a mistake. I think we both think Kevin Stefanski's not the problem in Cleveland. There's a lot of other problems, but he's not one of them. But when you start to look at if the Browns open up, like Steve Sarkisian's not going to the Browns. I
No,
promise you, he's way too smart of a human being to do that.
no. There's really not that many jobs. But then like with Manning, it's like you're gonna have to go probably somewhere that's not good. I mean, the Giants weren't really good when Eli went there. The Colts were awful when Peyton went
Yeah, they
there.
were. Yeah, they
But
were.
you got to find something where like you can believe that you can be a conduit for change. Like the Commanders were terrible. Now they look like they might be my pick to win the NFC next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jaden Daniels is awesome, and then you trade for Laramie Tunsil, you trade for Debo, a roster that's going to get better. Like they're in a good spot. Things are going well for the Commanders, unfortunately for me.
Yeah, think the Commanders are in a good spot. The Cowboys are in a spot, and I don't know what's going on necessarily over there at Arizona State, but you may have missed your mark. Kenny Dillingham. This is interesting with this. Well, first off, congratulations on being on the deluxe edition cover with Sam Levitt for College Football 26. So
Sick,
congratulations.
absolutely sick.
Yeah, it's like Caleb Downs, it's somebody from Alabama, Kirby Smart's there, all sorts of good things. Buy his Arizona State podcast.
Bye.
All right, now I can talk about Kenny Dillingham. Well, timing's everything, dude. But
That's
like
right.
I think there was something that was written for ESPN.com that was pretty thorough. He's trying to build it like how Dabo Swinney did at Clemson.
Hmm.
Again, this is a guy who is from Phoenix, who went to Arizona State, who's always known this as a sleeping giant. And prior to Dabo, Clemson was just kind of like an 8-4 team under Tommy Bowden. They
Yeah.
had a peak there under Danny Ford in the 70s and 80s, but like the 90s and 2000s, it wasn't this. So I don't know, like, what are your thoughts on potentially Kenny Dillingham patterning it after Clemson? Is that the right call?
I definitely think so because you look at Clemson and you look at Arizona State. Both are in the middle of recruiting hotbeds, quite frankly. Like Arizona's becoming a recruiting hotbed. You're also geographically pretty advantageously located near California, Southern California specifically. So like you have a real potential to expand your recruiting base there. Just like Clemson has Atlanta, North Carolina, South Carolina, like, the Southeast, that
Yeah.
generally, yeah. And so, but just like with Clemson, there's a lot of more blue blood competition that is going to be trying to get from Arizona State. And I think one of the things, we make a lot of fun of Dabo and Clemson for not using the transfer portal. One of the things that is kind of in the same vein, though, Clemson doesn't lose a lot of guys to the transfer
No.
portal. Clemson builds a culture and they keep guys there, and like they get people who are going to buy into what you want to do. And when you listen to Kenny Dillingham talk about Arizona State, it's very clear that that's probably like I think that when he says he's like patterning this after Clemson, that's what it means to me. Is like he's trying to build the culture. He's trying to build a place where when guys come there, they trust him. They trust him with their livelihood, whether that's NIL, whether that's what the next step is in the NFL. But like he's trying to build something that is sustainable within itself and doesn't require necessarily this. Like Clemson doesn't have the NIL investment that Georgia, Texas, Alabama, and those programs do. Arizona State's just not going to have that because they don't have the financial like ability to do that, but they do have some. And like using that wisely and using that smartly to build your culture, I think is what Kenny Dillingham means by this. And I think that's absolutely the right call.
Yes. Point is perfect here. they're going to do it like Clemson in the sense of like, we're going to create a culture where you're not going to want to transfer. But if you want to transfer in, you sure can. I mean, Sam Levitt played at Michigan State. Cam Scatterby was at, well, I believe, Sacramento State at the
Yeah.
FCS level. Prior to that, you get Udo coming in from Army. Talk about a culture shock there.
Dude, like every time I think about it, it makes me smile. Like you're going from West Point, waking up at 5 a.m. every day to do your 3 mile run, and now you're going to bed at 5 a.m. in Tempe.
You are going from the banks of the Hudson to whatever water is coming out of the Gila River.
That's not water, brother.
No, no, man, that's just last night.
That's right.
But yeah, I think this is a good thing because Arizona State has had high points. Their best coach prior to Dillingham or ever is Frank Kush, and he was there in like the 50s and 60s competing in I think what was the border conference back in the day. They
Mhm.
also had a lot of success there. I think was it Dennis Erickson, I guess, kind of the Jake Plummer, Pat Tillman era,
I
like
think that's
90s.
right.
Like
Yeah.
that was another high point, but they hadn't really what they experienced then is similar to what they're experiencing now. There was some stuff in between that was good and interesting, but not to this level.
No, definitely not. And like I think you just said the operative word, particularly in modern college football, like interesting. There have been interesting things that have happened in Arizona State. And honestly, that's been a lot of Arizona State athletics. You go back to even like basketball with like James Harden, like or like teams that come out of nowhere and stuff like that. They've had like pop teams or stars or figures that are recognizable. Like you look back at like Jake Plummer, someone like
Yeah.
that. And so like there are guys that caught college football's attention nationally, but I wouldn't say there's been many teams that you look at have been like in the modern era of college football and have been like, oh, that's a team that's a real threat. Because I don't think that's necessarily been the case. It's more been like, man, this might be the most fun 8-4 team in the country, and like Kenny Dillingham is clearly upping that standard quite a bit.
Oh yeah. Also, you're taking advantage of the fact there's the power void at the top of the Big 12. There's
Hmm.
teams that I think will occupy it. One of which I think is actually really well equipped is BYU actually.
100%.
And you're also dealing with the fact that Arizona is kind of in a bit of flux. They've got some financial issues. They've got a head coach that may be over his skis. We'll see what happens there with Brent Brennan and everything like that. But then you're also like, you're going to a league that's not like, you're not competing in the Pac-12 South anymore. You're competing with
Right.
a larger pool of teams. And I think it's going to work out for them, but you're building it the right way. Also, I think it's crazy that one of our peers is running a Power Four school. Like, it's so weird.
I mean, like I can barely run my life, much less a college football program. So yeah, it's absolutely wild, and it's wild to come from the mines all the way to this point.
You know, when Kenny D shattered his pelvis running the crossing route, he came back as like the nicer version of Dr. Arliss Lovelace.
There, yeah.
We've been watching some movies since your last time. We saw Wild Wild West, and we also
A
saw
classic.
Little Miss Sunshine too.
Oh God, that you've been hitting some bangers. That's good stuff.
Dude, James Gum is Bloodbath McGrath. Blows my
Yeah,
mind.
it's wild.
Then Little Miss Sunshine, like we definitely all knew that guy in high school. That was Paul Dano.
Oh, 100%. First of all, I love Paul Dano. I think he's fantastic, but man, that kid wanted to fly a plane so bad.
He's like, I'll find ways to fly jets. I'm like, that's the most teenager thing I've ever heard.
Hyperfixation. There's nothing like it.
But I mean, at that time, he had to have been like 25.
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, it definitely was not a high schooler, that's for sure.
No, sir. My granddad showed me all these moves.
Yeah, right.
Oh my God. I totally forgot Bryan Cranston's trying to like, yeah, we couldn't sell it because no one knows who you are.
That's
God. Wild Wild West, not that bad, but not really that good either.
No, it's like a perfect like 3 out of 5 stars. Like you're gonna enjoy it when you watch it every single time, but there's not like any distinguishing like feature of the movie where you're like, man, that should be a way more popular movie. No, if you've seen it, you're gonna like it. If you haven't, you're not really missing out.
No. No, I kind of feel that was what a Barry Seinfeld heat check after Men in Black.
Oh, 100%. It absolutely was.
Could you imagine Kenny Dillingham walking around with like the mechanical spider there in the the desert?
I can't imagine that. Absolutely.
Well, I declare.
I declare.
Also, shout out to Gilroy Lockhart, man, Kenneth
Yeah, oh my
Bragg.
God. Yeah, just absolutely like the cast of that movie is wild. Like like that's how you know it's a heat check because like that cast is just like heavy hitter after heavy hitter. Like not just Will Smith and Kevin Kline, but then you have Kenneth Branagh and I'm totally forgetting James Gumm's name, but like
Uh, yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah. Ted Levine, you got
Ted
Selma
Levine.
Hayek,
Thank you. Yeah,
Selma
Selma
Hayek,
Hayek.
a Biling.
Yeah, like it's just they clearly just gave this guy like hundreds of millions of dollars to make this movie.
Did not realize that Kevin Kline was playing both Artemis Gordon and President Ulysses Simpson Grant.
Yeah, I mean, he's an accomplished actor, Bueller. He's got to challenge himself.
Also, like Ulysses S. Grant, the ultimate, like just the FIFO energy coursing through his veins is ungodly.
It's yeah, I mean, holding on to the pocket watch for dear life at all times.
I read somewhere he graduated like 41st in a class of 60 from West Point. He's like, yeah, he just got after it too much. And I'm like, respect. That's why I got the $50 bill, man.
Yeah, 100%. You could have been on the 100, but we'll take the 50.
And I can't really do math here, but where's the money, Lebowski? Yes, we're moving on to John Mateer getting an NIL evaluation of $3 million. I don't know how many $50 bills that is, but it's less than 3 million.
It's yeah, it's quite a lot still. So I that's way too much math.
I know
But
yes, go
no,
ahead.
go no, you go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I know we've poked the bear with Oklahoma a little bit here, but I'm in favor of this. This is what he's worth. He commanded the most on the market, a very solid high-end quarterback at Washington State. This is what you're paying. You're paying for him to be better than 6-6. You win 9-3 games with the hardest schedule in the country.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, not real advantageous for
No.
Oklahoma at all in their current state, but like, so I'm of two minds with this. First off, I do think there is somewhat of a hint of desperation, and I don't even mean that negatively as it might sound. Like you brought in Jackson Arnold. I'm sure Jackson Arnold got a pretty hefty NIL package to come to Oklahoma. That didn't work out. Things have not been working out. Brent Venables has to be desperate. I think he should be desperate. And so like going out and getting the top like one of the top quarterbacks on the market, paying $3 million to get him in the transfer portal, I think it's something you had to do, especially with your if you're Brent Venables and you're bringing in his offensive coordinator in Arbuckle, like you have to do these things just to try to get things off the ground, try to switch things up because you're a defensive guy. That is not your side of the ball. So you have to fix that. And like I said, it's desperate, but I think it's like purposefully and rightfully desperate. Like if Brent Venables and Oklahoma don't have a good season against the toughest schedule in the country, there's a really good chance that Brent Venables loses his job. So you have to go get a player like Mateer. And like, who's to say that John Mateer, not just because he just came from Washington State, but like, who's to say that this isn't a Cam Ward like effect? Like
Right.
Miami was not flirting with the college football playoff spot the year prior. Like they weren't doing that, and they were this year with Cam Ward after bringing him in and making some changes there. So maybe Oklahoma can surprise some people. Like I like John Mateer as a player. Like anything negative that we've said about Oklahoma isn't necessarily about some of the guys. It's just that it hasn't worked to this point.
Well, this is a program that's well resourced.
Mhm.
They owe it to themselves to pay what it costs, maybe a slight premium. Look, if you don't pay him 3 million, Wake will give him 1.5 and he'll go play with
Oh
Jake
yeah.
Dickert. Like Wake's not swimming in money, but like they do it.
Oh yeah.
It's a different era. And then, I think he was also potentially in the mix to go to somewhere like Auburn or something like that. Who knows
Mhm.
what they're paying Jackson Arnold now? But like this is the right call here to do this. Again, you're right. This is Brent Venables is a defensive minded head coach. If he's, Arbuckle, I don't even think is 30. So
Yeah.
like
He's not even our
you're
peer. That's
uh
crazy.
not no, not at all. Like I don't even think we went to elementary school with him. He was just
Yeah.
we were getting acne and he was learning how to read. This is false start.
He was really crushing addition.
When you add a negative, it's still negative.
Wild.
You subtract a negative, you're negative. Oh, okay. I don't know if I ever told you this. So this is like change of time. So I'm a year older than you. So to graduate kindergarten, you had to pass this test. So they do beans.
Okay.
One side of the bean is white, one side of the bean is red, and you flip them and you do like the subtraction. You color it and then you show your work, and that's part of it. So
Okay.
once you do like those addition tables of like a dozen, then you have to walk from the classroom to the front playground, which I'm sitting here thinking back in 95, okay, I can do this. But like you're talking about taking a bunch of 5 and 6 year olds to like walk a couple thousand feet, like in a public school, like outside, like can't do that now.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, times have definitely changed. Like, I'm pretty sure that so, some kindergarten teachers would just show up like hungover and be like, "All right, we're having like a lot of time on the playground today," and like the teacher just would be MIA for like an hour or something like that.
Yeah, just posting up in the break room.
Yeah, just taking 3 cups of coffee right to the head.
I can't believe I got to do this. But yeah, educating America's youth. That's what it's all about.
That's right.
But I will say though, with the Mateers money, like I'm cautiously optimistic about what they can do. There's been a lot of, hate on the Oklahoma program. I know they're up against it, but I feel like this is the same sort of thing that Florida was dealing with last year. It's like, okay, we got the promising quarterback, we got the head coach who's fighting for dear life. Yes, the schedules are eerily similar. They flip. Obviously, Oklahoma's got to go to like Knoxville this year,
Yeah.
and you still got to play Texas and Dallas, among other things. But like, it's a different team. It's a different vibe, and we'll see what happens. I don't think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the SEC. I think that they got a chance to possibly be in the top half, but that's where we thought they'd be in first year in the SEC, and they weren't.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think one of the good things about Oklahoma this year, because I don't think we necessarily got to see it last year, but we're going to find out what this team is early. They play Michigan the second week of the season, and it's in Norman. So, like, we don't know what Michigan's going to be there. There's a chance Michigan's starting a true freshman in his second game. So, like, that's an opportunity for Brent Venables in Oklahoma to make a statement, get some good vibes, get some momentum before you go into SEC play. I'm with you. I don't think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the SEC. I think our criticism of Oklahoma comes from the fact that that's the bar we're talking about them clearing, and Oklahoma should have a higher bar than that. And like perhaps John Mateer is the guy to raise that bar. I'm not ruling out that possibility because I do think he's a talented player. He's a unique player. And he's also someone that when you look around the SEC, there's not many players who play like John Mateer. Like honestly, the closest one I can think of off the top of my head is Arch right now. And like John Mateer is probably a better thrower than Arch is right now. So like when you look at that, that's something that could really help out Oklahoma and Brent Venables in a big way. Like the element of you think about when Army and Navy play teams that are outside of the conference, and sometimes, especially in the first half, those teams tend to struggle because you can't spend your entire season preparing for a triple option team. You can't do
Right.
it. Like there's so few teams that run it, it's hard to prepare for that. Well, there's not a whole lot of people who are or a whole lot of teams that are running Arbuckle's offense with a guy like John Mateer. So like that's something that could be like I hadn't really factored into the equation until I started thinking more about this show, and like that's something to be optimistic about. That's something that can actually help them, maybe level the playing field a little bit again against the toughest schedule in the country.
Right. I think you bring up two great points there. You talk about the offense being different. It's similar to the triple option. Obviously, for years under Paul Johnson, Georgia Tech ran it.
Yeah.
And first year Georgia played them, got our ass kicked. And obviously, North Carolina Tar Heels played in the same ACC Coastal. What schools like that would do that would play Georgia Tech every year, Georgia, North Carolina, Miami, didn't matter with Virginia, but like
Yeah.
Pitt, like they would basically put it into their schedule, like how to prepare for it. Like they would basically install how to stop a triple option, and it could render Georgia Tech useless. Some years they would just not out athlete, but out scheme you and win a
Yeah.
lot. But like there was always a limitation of that, which I think we've kind of gotten past that with Brent Key, Buster Faulkner, that era of Georgia Tech. But then like with the Mateer point, you're like okay, how many quarterbacks are really we know are going to be super good in the SEC next year? Like we like the idea of Arch Manning and Garrett Nussmeier, but we still don't really know. The
Yeah.
North Sellers might be my favorite out of
Yeah.
South Carolina, but we don't know how good Gunnar Stockton can be. We don't know how good Austin Simmons is going to be at Ole Miss. We don't know like if Jackson Arnold's going to get it turned around at Auburn. We do know that Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt is effing turned, but like
Yeah.
DJ Lagway, we don't really know.
we don't know who the quarterback at Alabama is. So, we definitely can't make an
No.
evaluation there. So like you look at like you that's a great point by you. Like there's a power void. And honestly, bringing up Diego Pavia, that's another like Oklahoma with John Mateer. Could they be an upgraded version of what Vanderbilt was a year ago? Like, you
Yeah, I'm
know,
not ruling that out. Yeah.
yeah, because like Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt, they do not run a normal offense, and we saw how much that frustrated SEC competition, like teams who were more talented than them. Like, all due respect to Vanderbilt, and they got the job done, but like Alabama's a far more talented team than them, and that didn't matter on the field because Diego Pavia caused them all kinds of problems. Mateer can kind of do that as well. It's just you have better talent around him because you are at Oklahoma.
The SEC schedules, it's just they're so tough, man.
It's, I mean, it's a gauntlet, dude. It's not good.
Like what is it? 23, 24, 25 in Bill Connolly's ESPN's SP Plus rankings were Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Missouri, which are the three easiest. But those are still 25 top
Yeah.
25 hardest schedules in the country.
No, and so I'm looking at Oklahoma's schedule now. I actually really like the way this sets up for them to potentially get that momentum. Like I mentioned Michigan in the second week. The opener is against Illinois State. I think they can handle
Yeah.
business there. Then you go on the road to play Temple. Don't know why that's a road game at Temple, but Temple's not very good. You're going to be fine there. Then you open SEC play with Auburn in Norman. I think that's a huge game for them because I think
Yeah.
Auburn and Oklahoma are kind of going to be jockeying for the same spot in the SEC, basically. So,
Right.
like, when you look at those two, that could be something that, like, if you can get a win at home on your home turf, that's something that can set the vibes. And then you don't have to go into like a big SEC matchup the week after that. You get a bye, and then you get to play Kent State, the worst team in FBS, the next week before Red River. Like, that's really advantageous for that runway to set up nicely for Oklahoma to gain momentum going into the real like meat and potatoes of the schedule.
Yeah, you're looking at a schedule like even if it's tough, it's backloaded for sure. But
Oh
like
yeah.
there's a chance that like you could be 5-0 heading into Red River, maybe 4-1, depending on how you feel about the Auburn or Michigan game.
Yeah.
Um, I think you can get Michigan early. I think that like Auburn might be tougher than you think.
No, no, Auburn's definitely like Auburn's a good football team. I have a lot of faith in Auburn and like I think Oklahoma, but like if we're talking optimistically about Oklahoma, Auburn needs things to coalesce early as well too. So like getting that game early, that's kind of like a potential turning point for them. You talk about the schedule being backloaded. I've just got to mention how brutal this is. Like the
Oh,
back
good.
end of the schedule. So you have Red River. The next week after Red River, you go on the road to South Carolina. Then you
Ugh.
come back home the next week to host Ole Miss. Then the next week you go on the road to Knoxville. You get a bye, thank God. And then you go on the road to Tuscaloosa before finishing at home against Missouri and LSU. What the hell, man? That's so tough.
You're essentially playing six ranked teams in conference play.
So
And,
bad,
and this
dude.
doesn't even include like Mizzou or Auburn, who could be pushing for that as well.
Yeah, like that's brutal.
Like, and you're not playing Georgia, you're not
No.
playing Florida.
Like
Oh my God! But that's awful. That might be worse than Florida last year.
it really might be. Like this is just going Red River at South Carolina, whole Ole Miss at Knoxville with no bye in between. My God.
Uh, that's tough. And I don't know if I have any answers for that, but I've got a question for you. Let's move on to our fourth topic with some do Haas or do Haas. Cody, will the return of Colbie Young to the UGA receiving core be what helps get the most out of Gunnar Stockton?
Do Haas 1S, man. Like when you looked at Georgia with Carson Beck, which again, we're saying this not really knowing what Gunnar Stockton is. Like, let's be clear about that. But like in terms of getting the most out of him, when you look at Carson Beck, they didn't get the most out of Carson Beck in the 2024 season. I'm not, breaking news by saying that. I think most Georgia fans would agree with me in that in saying that. And a big reason was the wide receiver core just asked a lot of guys to play roles that they aren't really comfortable playing. Like Arian Smith became like a do it all, like downfield threat. He's a gadget player. That's what Arian Smith is. He's not much more than like he can't catch the ball down the field. So like
No.
that's not what you're looking for. Like Dylan Bell became like a number one type of guy. Dylan Bell's also kind of a gadget guy.
Yeah.
Like you're asking all these guys to elevate, and like part of that is losing Ra Thomas off the team. Part of that was Colbie Young not being available while an investigation was going on. That obviously turned out to not yield anything. He's been reinstated, and here we are. Colbie Young was supposed to be kind of the true number one, like someone who can attack down the field, someone who can win in 50-50 situations, someone who can win at every level of the field. He wasn't available for that. Now he's coming into a situation where you have that guy returning to the field with Zachariah Branch, with Noah Thomas, and like that looks like a complete receiving core. That looks like a receiving core that you can actually like bank on and do different things with, which I think, part of Georgia's offensive issues are definitely Mike Bobo. Part of the last year's offensive issues with Mike Bobo were what the hell do you expect him to do? And like I think that when you have Gunnar Stockton, a guy who he obviously knows well and likes and thinks highly of, you put him in a situation with this receiving room, there's enough versatility with Colbie Young returning that there's a lot of stuff you can do with Gunnar Stockton to make life easy for the kid.
And then you still have Dylan Bell. You still have London Humphreys is the ultimate catch guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then your running game, it's going to be would it be Nate Frazier because Trevor Etienne's now gone
Mhm.
pro.
Branson Robinson's coming back, right?
Branson Robinson, yeah, they got somebody else. I'm kind of on the fence here, and you know what? Georgia lost last night, so I'm to Oklahoma. So I'm going to say Duhas Duhas is just a
Okay.
beat. I kind of feel like, for first off, Colbie Young's only coming back because of like the JUCO thing. I think he played at Lackawanna up there at Pennsylvania. Obviously, his legal situation last year limited him to 5 games. He can come back. I think it's more of like I just don't know with Gunnar Stockton right now. Maybe
And
it's
fair.
good, but like I think like you mentioned more like the additions of Zachariah Branch and Noah Thomas. That might be more impactful than just getting Colbie Young back. I think it
Mhm.
helps. I don't think it's like going to change the entire world, but like you kind of wonder like, okay, who's the guy on the team that Gunnar Stockton's probably closest with? That'd be Oscar Delp at tight end.
Yeah,
So
100%.
it's like Oscar Delp and Lawson Lucky at tight end. You probably that's kind of more important there. I think the fact that Stockton can run a little bit more, that helps the running game to some degree. I don't know, I feel like the offense is going to be very ground centric.
I mean, most likely it's a Mike Bobo offense, and like that was another thing is that Georgia, didn't run the ball as well as they wanted to with Trevor Etienne, with Etienne's injuries, to be clear, and like I think that hurt that. Bobo's not a good at adjusting when things don't go the way he wants to, but I do think like so the reason I think I'm more positive is I'm kind of looking at the way you framed the Duhas question. You said get the most out of Gunnar Stockton. I don't know what Gunnar Stockton is. I don't know what the most out of Gunnar Stockton is either. Like I don't know like is the most out of Gunnar Stockton Stetson Bennett getting to the national championship game, or is the most out of Gunnar Stockton, I don't know, give me like David Green or someone like that. Like I don't know what the most out of Gunnar Stockton is. But if I'm looking at the situation that Colbie Young, I think, really ties a bow on. Like I'm not saying he's like necessarily like a world beater. He's gonna have like 1,200 yards or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But I think he is the piece that like really makes the picture look nice. Like, the little like touch of paint that you need on the picture to get it exactly the way you want it. And in terms of getting the most out of Gunnar Stockton, whatever that is, I think he is a piece that really helps do
He threw it to Young. He
that.
stepped on their face with a hobnail boot and crushed their nose.
That's right.
Oh man, I still can't believe Ron Haynes' son's playing for Michigan now.
It's
Why is he not at Georgia? I don't understand.
man, it's there's so many things with people's kids right now that I can't really fathom. Like the fact that an Urlacher is playing like at Notre Dame, like that hurts my heart. I remember Brian Urlacher very well.
Oh, the fact. What I mean, what? Boyd Carter's grandson's playing Notre Dame too. That's
Yeah.
tough.
And like I mean I pitched something like a couple months ago, like I had forgotten about it, but like Chris Henry's son is like one of the top recruits in the country, committed to Ohio State. Like Chris Henry's like not that much older than us, and like his son is about
Yeah.
to go to college or what, like rest in peace Chris Henry, to be
Yeah.
clear. But like, he was our age, and like the fact that his son is about to go to Ohio State is just mind blowing.
Oh, I know, like Drake Kirkpatrick Jr. is going to like Alabama. The fact Cooper Witten is out there, I'd be shocked if he went to Tennessee just because. But he's being recruited by Ohio State.
Yeah, it's God. We're getting
These,
old, man. We're so washed.
I know, I know, man. Like I want to be working until I'm 80 to pay for these kids.
100%.
I mean, you got a house and I got a job.
That's right.
I had a high school friend who's like the middle child, massive middle child. And the older brother was really smart. The sister was like a star swimmer, and he got the big room.
Hell yeah, that's an alpha move.
But he was cooler. Like he had social skills. But
He had social skills. What a bar. What a bar.
uh and he didn't go to Georgia with me, and we're not going to be mentioning Georgia here with our next subject here with our penultimate topic. May take a while, but let's do some TIN 10.
Yes, sir.
Shout out to Michael Castillo now being part of the .com team. We had husband and wife working with us
That's
daily.
right.
Michael Castillo, the husband of Alicia De Arturo Castillo, he's now working with us alongside doing graphic design. It really is his passion. It's
It
his job.
actually is. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but he added a really sweet, cool graphic to something I wrote. Like, I for the show, I'm like, we need some content here. I'm like, let's do 10 teams that have never made the playoff before that could make it for the first time this year. And there's more and more teams making the playoff with every year than ever expected. Like last year, we had six that
Yeah.
made it for the first time. And I did the math because I want to make sure I got this right. Was it like a year ago? It was Arizona State, Boise State, Indiana, Penn State, SMU, and Tennessee. I think I may have mentioned one again, but those were all new entrants as well. And then we forget sometimes that Michigan State made the playoff before, and so did Oklahoma.
That's right. Yeah.
TCU, Cincinnati.
You forget these things. They slip your mind.
But let's excuse me, let's work our way down from 10 to 1. So who we have on here, you know who mine are. I don't know what yours are. At 10, I have Nebraska.
Yeah. Yeah. I have Nebraska on my list. A little bit higher. A little bit higher.
Yeah, my thought is like I needed a second Big Ten team here that I think could do it. This is the Matt Rule pop year. Dale Holgerson's back as the OC. We'll see what Dylan Raiola can do. If Nebraska essentially handles business versus Illinois or Indiana, basically in that tier, Michigan, like they could basically rise up to the level of Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State. So I'm not counting on it, but like I'm not crossing it off.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a set of teams. I would say probably like the bottom five on my list that like I'm not counting on it, but like I can see it. Like I'm not, the top five definitely I have a little more conviction behind. But at number 10, I have BYU. And like I think this kind of goes back to what you were talking about when we were talking about Arizona State, like just the power void at the top of the Big 12. And like I think Arizona State's going to occupy that. But like BYU had a great season last year. BYU has a really strong infrastructure under Kalani Sitake. They have Jake Retzlaff returning. Like you have a lot of pieces returning. Like BYU could like I feel like we do this a lot with BYU, and especially now that they're in the Big 12, I feel like it's going to happen even more often. But like, we just expect a downturn without really having a reason for it. And like, there's a really good chance that they're competing to win the Big 12 yet again.
There's a chance I may have BYU where you have Nebraska. There, that's a very much within the realm of possibility here. But
Yeah.
we mentioned this earlier in the show. I think BYU's got a really strong identity. They know who they are. They wanted to move up into the Power Four. They got it, and if they didn't fall apart down the stretch, losing to Kansas and Arizona State, they're going to Arlington, and maybe they're in the playoff. If we had a 16-team playoff, or honestly, even if we had a 14-team playoff, they would have gotten in over Iowa State, which would have created a lot of controversy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That Big 12 country would have been up in arms. That's for sure.
Yes, and my next team is also a Big 12 team. I've got the Texas Tech Red Raiders as a
Mhm.
potential candidate. I know maybe you have another Big 12 team that replace them, but like there's a lot of things in the Big 12 where like it could happen. I just think Joey McGuire's recruiting at a high level. Baron Morton Salt's back. I love seeing them beat up West Virginia. Just create Neil Brown's life hell. Shout out to going to Texas, man. Congratulations.
Yeah, real happy for you.
That's the second person that Texas people in Lubbock hate went to Texas.
Correct, correct.
I don't think they have a Chris. I don't think they have a Neil Brown statue there in Lubbock, but they've got one for Chris Beard and Buddy Holly, and that's awesome.
That's right.
Do you think on the Patrick Mahomes statue if he's eating eggs covered in ketchup?
Oh, 100%. It's got to be. Actually, you know what? Eggs on a tortilla covered in ketchup because Lubbock, Lubbock things.
Yeah, yeah. Texas Tech is 9. I don't know if you have them in there, but like that's kind of what I'm feeling.
You're a little bit higher on Texas Tech than I do. They'd probably be like 11 or 12 on this list for me. Like your points are well taken. You're just a little bit higher on them than me. This isn't my number 9 isn't a team I have a ton of conviction about, but I do have a ton of conviction about their coach, and that's Tulane. And we think John Summerall's one of the best coaches in college football. He may not be long for Tulane, but like while he's there, they're going to be a threat to get to the playoff for the first time as the Group of Five champion. Like I absolutely believe that. And like, yes, you lost a lot from the roster last year. Darian Mensah going to Duke. Like you're kind of just picking up the pieces a little bit. But John Summerall's proven at Troy, and I'm sure is about to prove at Tulane that he just makes it work no matter what he's got, and he's going to win a lot of football games.
Big John Summerall fans here. Not long, probably got to go to Kentucky in a year or so. But I do not have any group of 5 teams on here. Tulane's not my pick to win the group of 5, but I
Yeah.
would probably say they were the first few teams that did not make this list that I would consider. For those reasons, they've been successful under Willie Fritz. They showed a lot under John Summerall year 1. Uh, they would have made it like the playoff a couple years ago because they beat USC after
Yeah.
winning the American. They're right there. That's not a bad pick. I'm okay with that. Them at 9.
Yeah, I felt like I needed to get one group of 5 team, and then I thought about John Summerall, and it was pretty easy from there.
Hundo P. Moving on to 8. Gets my better judgment. I'm gonna go with the B's. I'm gonna go with the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets.
Okay.
They're in that group of teams in the ACC where like they're not Clemson, but like they could conceivably get to Charlotte. I don't necessarily think that they're favored to do. They have a really strong coaching staff. If they retain Tyler Santucci, I'd be all about this. But like Brent Key is good, Buster Faulkner's great. They've got Haynes King, who's 24 already, coming back. They know who they are now. They've got a really good team. I'm kind of nervous about playing them next year in clean old fashioned hate, but I think it's at the Benz, so
It's
that's
at the
that's
Big
that,
Body
that's
Benz.
big body Benz, not Bobby Dodd Stadium or Mark Richt Field, but like Georgia Tech certainly in that group of teams in the ACC that could conceivably get in. So that's why I've got them at 8.
So I do not have Georgia Tech on here, and it's honestly because I don't care for the ACC this year, and like I think it's Clemson running away with it. I do have one ACC team on here, and that one's probably pretty obvious. They're near the top of the list, and
Yeah,
so it's more ACC hate. I'm high on Georgia Tech. I just don't know if it's going to be playoff high, kind of. At 8, I have Kansas State, and kind of just the same talking points I had with BYU. You're bringing a lot back. I think Avery Johnson did show some progression in his freshman season or his first season as a starter, excuse me. And I think that, I have a lot of faith in Chris Kleinman. I think that he's a really damn good football coach. And if there is a void to get 2 Big 12 teams in there with Arizona State, because I do think Arizona State is probably the champion. Like I think that Kansas State's you could do worse than betting on Kansas State to be that second team.
yeah. In years past, they would have probably made it back in 23 or 22. They won the Big 12 over TCU. I do not have Kansas State in my top 10. I'm not really that sold on Tooney Bopper Avery Johnson. He's just kind of
Yeah,
like he's just Leif Garrett out there, man. You
it's true.
can't really trust him. I think for me, like, and I'll probably mention this, I'll have Iowa State up here much higher because I think that they're going to win Farmageddon. But like those two rivals, like I could see one of them winning the Big 12 or getting to Arlington. Kansas State was one of the teams I considered, but I don't quite have them in here. But I can see how you can be high on them. I'm a big Chris Kleiman fan. Just don't trust Avery Johnson right now.
Totally get it too. Like I'm not saying I trust him with my whole heart, but I think the Big 12 is very wide open. So
And my bias is showing at number 7. I've got Louisville.
your bias is shown a little
Yeah,
bit.
I'm just a big Jeff Brom fan. I think that Louisville. He's the first 2 years like navigated an easy schedule, did pretty good against a more challenging schedule. I feel like he's gotten to Louisville to a point where he had Purdue, where like you're playing above what you could play at. You've got better resources at Louisville. You made Louisville likable. I just kind of feel that like if Miami or Georgia Tech or SMU just don't have it together, maybe they can take advantage and lose to Clemson.
So I have Louisville's my first team out. They were they got lost on the chopping block. But I'm not as high on Louisville as you are, but like I'm also a big Jeff Brom guy, and I think that your point about him having Louisville at what Purdue was, I think it's that, but I also think Louisville just has more resources than Purdue does for the football program, and so like that's a little bit better version. And you also have, this is alma mater, so like you can sell that a little bit, which might be help you get upgrades. But big fan of what Miller Moss can look like in the system, and I'm not sure they get close to the playoff necessarily, but I would guarantee that they upset someone this year in a big way.
Yeah, I like Miller Moss here. I'm so terrified of that defense. I don't think it's
Yeah,
good at all. Yeah.
yeah, it's not very
No,
good.
no. So who do you have at 7?
At seven's where I have Nebraska. That's where I
Okay.
have the Huskers. And like I said, this like, 6 to 10 is kind of the teams where I can talk myself into it. I don't know if I like, have like my full chest behind it, but like you mentioned, it's the Matt Rule pop year. It's Dylan Raiola actually maturing into a good quarterback. It's the fact that they're returning a lot on defense. Like that defense was very damn good last year, and you're kind of getting the offense to upgrade a little bit with some of the changes that are being made around Raiola. So like I just like the situation and how it sets up for them. And then like they're not my favorite to get that new like to basically take Indiana's spot from the Big Ten in the playoff, but like I think they're as good a candidate as anyone else beyond the team that I know that we both have near the top of this list.
100%. And that 6 is where I have BYU.
Okay, nice.
So I don't really have to expound too much on that. Who do you have at 6?
At 6, this is someone I know you don't have on your list, and I know I'm way too high on. That's the Auburn Tigers, Vic. Look, I for against my better judgment, I'm a believer in Hugh Freeze. Like I think he's a good coach, and I understand that this year is going to be different, but I think that Hugh Freeze's fingerprints are already all over this program. I think that the fact that you have Jackson Arnold in there, the fact that you've been recruiting the wide receiver in the defense, the wide receiver position in the trenches in the defense, the way that he has been, this situation for Jackson Arnold to come into is night and day from what he had at Oklahoma last year. Like I think I'm not saying that Jackson Arnold's going to be a world beater, but I'm saying that he's probably going to be better than Peyton Thorne. And the situation around him is better than what Peyton Thorne had to work with as well. So like I look at this Auburn team and I just think they're going to be tough to beat. Like I'm not saying that they're going to be great. It's not going to be like Cam Newton Auburn or anything like that. But like week in and week out, this isn't a team you want to see on the other sideline because I think they're talented enough to beat you on any given Saturday.
Yeah, so I do not have Auburn in here. I considered it just because Auburn's chaotic and they're having too much good time on basketball. They might win the whole thing.
They might just.
But I think maybe something you probably thought of maybe to mention here. This is the type of year where Auburn just goes and plays for a national
It's
championship.
true. It's true.
You got Hugh Freeze in a desperate situation, obviously dealing with some major medical issues. Shout out, coach, please get better.
Absolutely.
You also get Georgia and Alabama at home.
Hmm.
And with where those two programs are, you can get one or both. If you go on the road and you beat LSU again, we don't necessarily trust them. We like them, we don't trust them.
Hmm.
You can get in a pretty good spot, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think there's a certain team that I have higher up here that I like a little bit more than Auburn to kind of occupy that. But yeah, it's the same. It's the other side of the coin.
Yeah, like Auburn is not the highest SEC team I have on here. Let's be very clear about that. But like, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Auburn because I have been kind of banging that drum a little bit this offseason.
Totally agree with you. At number 5, I've got the U. I've got the Miami Hurricanes.
Mhm.
This is all about, well, they were almost there. If they just beat Syracuse, they made it. And Carson Beck is good. I'm not gonna just tar and feather him on the way out, even though he probably should be. But he'll find his car. Maybe he'll find his ability to hit receivers in stride, not turn the ball over. I think he's going to have a lot of success there playing with Shannon Dawson, possibly help him get a head coaching gig, and they'll win about 10 or 11 games if all goes well, in spite of Mario Cristobal.
Yeah, so I have Miami at 4, not 5, so one spot away. But all your points, I'm right there with you. Carson Beck may need to delete Snapchat. I don't know if you've seen that. There's been another Snapchat debacle, and that it might only be one car getting stolen nowadays. Let's put it that way. The Cavender twin might not be in his life anymore.
Oh, congratulations. But also, the guy knows how to beat Georgia Tech. And
He
that's something
does.
Mario Cristobal does not know how to do. And Carson Beck beat the snot out of Florida State.
100%.
Uh, Yeah, that's gonna be awkward on campus.
Just
Okay,
a
she's
little
an online
bit.
student. Didn't realize that. So who do you have at five?
At five is where I have Iowa State. So if I'm not mistaken, like you have my Iowa State a little bit higher.
Hmm.
But like again, I kind of depress the Big 12 teams into like the 5 through 10 range just because I think it's kind of whack-a-mole with these Big 12 teams, man. Like I just think that when you look at them, like they're not that dissimilar from one another, and it's really just personal preference. I think we both prefer Iowa State over the rest of them, but at the same time, I can't like put them too far ahead of BYU, too far ahead of Kansas
Right.
State. Like they're so grouped together that like it's literally going to be by a hair or by a nose as to who like edges out this group in the Big 12.
It's so contingent on Rocco Beck's play because he can elevate the offense. Like Brock Purdy could do that at times. We know the defense is going to be solid there under Matt Campbell.
Yeah.
It's just about like, can you score enough points
Mhm.
to beat Arizona State or BYU or someone else like that? So yeah, I have Iowa State coming up here a little bit at four is where I got Florida.
Okay, nice.
Schedule's really tough. Billy Napier came out of the other side of it better. He's all in with DJ Lagway. Maybe he's great. I'm very terrified about playing in the cocktail party this year. Florida might get us
Mhm.
potentially. I'm not ruling that out. Very brutal schedule, but like if you win 9 games with that schedule in the SEC, you're probably going to make the playoff. This is a team that I think is going to win somewhere around 8, 10 games, maybe. You get to that point, Florida State's still probably down. Yeah, you're not that far away. And that's really all I gotta say about them.
Yeah, so I have Florida at three. Like I said, I have Miami at four, and I have Florida at three. So I'm right there with you. Like I think, people are going to use the schedule just like they did last year and talk about it as the reasons Florida's not going to make it. I am looking at it like you just said, optimistically in that it's an opportunity. Like if you can weather the schedule, which Billy Napier proved last year that they can do, and now he has a better roster to do it with. So like why wouldn't you believe in Florida? Like no one had Billy Napier making a bowl game winning like last year. They had Billy Napier not living in Gainesville anymore. That was the most popular prediction.
Yeah,
And he's still living in Gainesville. He's still coaching this program. And like I think this is a year where Florida definitely challenges everyone in the SEC any week out. Just like I said about Auburn, but I think you kind of alluded to it, like an upgraded version of what Auburn can be. Like I think Florida at this point is more proven than what Auburn is.
yeah, like they could beat what Tennessee, Georgia, LSU. That's not out of the realm of
No.
possibility as well. They could beat Ole Miss. Like again, like so at 3, 4, 5. I think we all have the same team. So I got Iowa State at three. So it's
Okay,
Iowa
yeah.
State, Florida, and Miami in some order.
Yeah, just shuffled around a little bit.
And I bet we have the same two teams at 1 and 2. Maybe not the same order.
No, I think they're the same order, bro.
At number two, we got the Illinois Fighting Illini.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
Everything is coming up aces for the Illini. They won 9 games. You got Luke Altmaier back. Everything in terms of schedule, like it's top 40, but like the only team in the Big Ten that I think has a softer schedule than you is Maryland.
Yeah, and they're Maryland, so they're not going to
Yeah.
weather it very
No,
well.
I wonder if Wisconsin regrets not having Brett Bielema as their head coach.
Right? Yeah, probably. I would assume so.
I wonder if Iowa's like, yeah, maybe we should bring him back and tell Kirk to go, hey, nah.
Tell him to go harvest some corn or
uh,
go into the children's hospital with Brian.
Illinois does not have the resources, is not recruited that well. They recruiting really well now, but like
Mhm.
historically, not so much. It's it's looking pretty good. Like they could be Indiana. I feel like whenever we get down to like predicting like whoever we have making the playoff, I don't know if we're going to necessarily have them in, but I would imagine to say we're probably going to have them ranked somewhere in the top 20, probably first 4 teams out.
Yeah, 100%. Like they are, I think that they're going to start the season a little disrespected, but I think that's going to quickly change. Like this is a
Yeah,
good team. This is a well-coached team. This is an experienced team. And like you said, like there is a power void in the Big Ten. Like it's not where Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State are, but right below them where Indiana occupied last year, there's a power void there. Maybe Michigan takes it, but I think Illinois is more proven and more has a higher floor than Michigan going into this year. And so when you look at them, it's really hard to discount what Illinois could accomplish this year.
they could be. ridiculously good. And they also beat the team that we have at number one, which would be South Carolina.
That's right.
I think right now I have them projected to be like the 10th seed.
Yeah, like I feel really confident that South Carolina is going to make the playoff, which scares the piss out of me because like that's not a great place to be in, but like we're very high on this team.
Okay, so their three losses last year, correct me if I'm wrong, it was a nail biter to LSU, it was a nail biter to Alabama, and then you got your teeth kicked in by Ole Miss in a game where everything hit the fan.
Hmm.
And then you went out and you beat the brakes off of A&M, and
Hmm.
you handled Clemson. So like challenging schedule, then the seventh hardest schedule in the country. Don't have to play Georgia, but like there's going to be opportunities out there for the Gamecocks to get quality wins after quality win. This is a team that we probably thought was going to win like for a while. They're like, this is going to be the best like 4 or 5 win team in the country.
Yeah, yeah. It turns out they were a lot better than that.
Yeah.
They were better than they were the best 4 or 5 winning team in the country because they doubled that.
I figured you'd have them one because I think you have them as like the third SEC team in behind Texas and Georgia, and I have Tennessee ahead of them, but like
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah, no, I have them ahead of Tennessee, and like I again, like I'm terrified of how confident I am in the Gamecocks right now.
I guess to tie a bow on this before we recap R10 and then do some JLN to finish the show up here. Last year we had like six make it in for the first time. I think that number may be closer to three or four. So
Yeah, I
what do
I
you,
was I was gonna say two or three. Like I think it's a small like the only two on this list that I truly feel confident in would be South Carolina and Illinois. Outside of that, like I think it's definitely possible, but I don't like with South Carolina and Illinois, I consider it almost likely. And with anyone else, I'm not sure. Like even Florida or Iowa State, like don't know if I would call it likely because I still think there's a really good chance that the Big 12 is a one bid league, and I think that Arizona State's the best team in the Big 12, quite frankly. So like I look at this and like 2 to 3 might be where I'm sitting as opposed to 3 to 4.
yeah, all 10 are possible. And like the top two is likely. And then three through five, what we have is it's not probable. There's another word. It's a definitely maybe there.
Yeah, they're definitely those are the definitely maybe all stars.
Oh yeah. And I don't know what team actually never mind. Let's just go through our top 10 and move on.
Let's go. So at 10, I have BYU. At 9, I have Tulane. At 8, Kansas State. At 7, Nebraska. 6, Auburn. 5, Iowa State. 4, Miami. 3, Florida. 2, Illinois. 1, South Carolina.
Yeah, yeah. So at 10, I've got Nebraska. 9, I've got Texas Tech. 8, Georgia Tech. 7, Louisville. 6, BYU. 5, Miami. 4, Florida. 3, Iowa State. 2, Illinois. And 1, South Carolina.
South Carolina, baby.
Oh gosh. We were telling Alicia that. She's like, is that how they say it? I'm like, that's how Steve Spurrier says it.
Yeah, that's all that really matters. However, like Steve Spurrier is my Webster's dictionary.
What do you think his favorite Alice in Chains song is if he has one?
Let's go. I could see him being a big man in the box guy. He has no idea what they're talking about, but he's like, oh man, this rips.
Yeah, let's move on to some just like Novocaine to get out of here with some Alice in Chains. Let's jump into the flood again with some Alice in Chains. Hey on 6 songs. Let's go with Man in the Box. Who do you got for that?
Man in the box. I'm going with Luke Fickle at Wisconsin. He's been put in this box and he wants to get the hell out of the box and like run the air raid and do different things at Wisconsin. But the box is the box, brother. You're the Wisconsin Badger. Get some line meat and run the damn football.
He definitely power cleans to this song too.
Oh, 100%.
You're just great. So my team might break you. So I got Josh Heupel for Deny Your Maker, Oklahoma. And as far as the dog who gets beat, that's Jeff Levy. You were ready for that at all?
It's not.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's good.
And as we choke on a rotten apple, who's rotten apple?
Rotten Apple, I'm going with Kirk Ferentz, brother. He'll repent tomorrow. Hey, no, no, no. Like, he's just, this is it's rotted in Iowa, man. Like this is so stale. It's beyond stale at this point, which is rotten. Like that's where we're at with Iowa and Kirk Ferentz.
I'm kind of there. I don't think I have Kirk Ferentz on here, but I've got Mike Gundy for this because
Yeah.
arrogance is potent, sustenance is stolen, confidence is broken. Hey, on and on. And as far as what I see is unreal, that would be Rob Ryan because God knows what he's saying right now. Jade Maeva, is that your uncle? I don't know.
I was realizing when we were doing when I started putting these together for Allison Chains, like obviously, Lane Staley was going through some things, and like so all of mine are like super like negative because most of these songs are pretty negative.
I mean, we did Metallica with Scott Rogus, and that was all about death, and this is all about Lane Staley going in and out of withdrawal, basically.
Yep, tough.
Tough scenes. Down in a hole.
Sand rains down and here I sit. Shouts to Brent Brennan sitting in the desert in Arizona, brother. Nothing but sand down in the hole coming, and like not a whole lot of good things I see on the horizon, if I'm being honest, for the Arizona Wildcats.
That's a great one. That might be a better fit than what I have, but I didn't do much thought here. That would be Mike Loxley and Troy Taylor, because it's not looking good for Maryland or Stanford right now at all.
Yeah, 100%.
Like that might be the worst team in the Big Ten, and that's probably the worst team in the ACC, depending
Yeah.
on how we view Wake. But Wake is going to be like Mississippi State, where they're trying, Jennifer.
Yeah, like Wake is going to be an inspirational 3-win team.
Hey, on and somebody check my brain. Who got for that?
I'm going with Jen Cohen at USC. California, I'm fine. Somebody check my brain, baby, because you still got to deal with Lincoln Riley as your head coach if it's not going well.
And that's who I have, Lincoln Riley.
Yeah.
And this will that's like their big single first back with I think William Ball after the passing of Lane Staley. So he and Jerry Cantrell handling the lead vocals. The song's about, yeah, Jerry Cantrell's like, yeah, I'm an addict and I'm living in LA, but everything's great. I'm having the best time of my life.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Also, I look like Jerry Cantrell, and I'm not gonna say you're Lane Staley. Maybe you're Sean Kinney's cousin or something.
You can call me Lane Staley. It's fine.
It's fine. And as far as a hell of a place to end a run, that's going to go to Will Howard sliding versus Oregon in the middle of the field.
Oh my God. Correct. That's the correct answer.
Let's go with a nutshell. The song I always confuse the Rotten Apple, but yeah. Another
Yeah,
sad one.
so if I can't be on my own, I'd feel better dead. That's Mike Gundy, bro. Like, that's where I have Mike Gundy. Like, if he's not going to be able to do it his way, like he's got to take his ball and go home pretty soon, I assume.
And I've got a Ferentz here. I've got Brian Ferentz with, and yet I fight this battle all alone. No one to cry to, no place to call home. Welcome
Nowhere.
to Fresno, bud.
Nowhere.
And as far as we chase misprinted lies, that's Jimbo Fisher with sliced bread. I had some good ones today.
That was you did, brother.
And let's finish with Heaven Beside You.
Heaven beside you, hell within. I actually did not write one down for this. I completely just wrote down 5. So I'm just going to go off the top of my head. Heaven beside you, hell within. That's gotta be. Let's go with Bill O'Brien. I think that's Bill O'Brien at Boston College, man. Like heaven beside you, like you're going to be well coached at Boston College, but you're also in Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts, which is not exactly where I want to go to college. And you're also going to win 6 games every single year perpetually for the rest of time.
Isn't that great? I thought you were going to go with another Bill. I had Bill Belichick. I figured that's a motivational speech. Heaven Beside You, hell within.
Actually, that is just a Bill Belichick quote. That's a good call.
And when I'm down in blue, rather be me than you. That's Hugh Freeze.
Get better, coach. Get better.
Get better, coach. 100%. And this was 100% episode 158 of False Start. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter at the X at Buhler118. You can follow Cody Williams at the Sizzle20. You can follow the show at CFB False Start. Like, rate, listen, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. 5-star review. That was almost like a Conan O'Brien string dance, just like this. Do that next time.
That's right.
Put that on my tombstone. Yeah, man, I'm glad to see you're back. I'm glad to see you have a new humble abode. I am gonna miss the scenery behind you, the mailman, the horses,
Everything, man. It's not going to be as exciting moving forward, unfortunately.
that's okay. How are the dogs handling the move?
They're loving it. They got a yard and a dog door to go out to the yard, so like they're living it up, man.
I know life's about being a yard dog and playing in the dirt, and this is false start.